When I moved to Northern Michigan, I came up here to study sign language, and I was going to become a sign language instructor at a deaf school. That was my goal. I was self-taught sign language. I worked at a couple summer camps. I was so good at it and so excited that I could speak this new language. And I had taken one semester of sign language, and I absolutely loved the instructor, and she was amazing. And I didn't know anything about college or just turned, I graduated when I was 17 years old. My birthday's in September, so I had just turned 18 when I started college. So I didn't know anything of how anything worked, right? So anyway, so I take Sign Language 101, had this great, amazing instructor, and then Sign Language 102, I go into the class thinking I'm going to have the same amazing instructor, and in walks a different teacher, a different professor. And I looked at her and I was just like, where's the other professor? And she goes, well, I teach Sign Language 102. And just because my expectation was not the same, I disliked her from day one. I was not very nice to her. I didn't participate in class, but I really loved what I was learning. And I really loved learning sign language. Well, lo and behold, by the end of the semester, this instructor for Sign Language 102 became my favorite. But it didn't start out that way. Now, let me tell you another story. It was like 2010, and it was the end of the summer. It was July, and I had gotten my foster care license for my brother's son, who came to live with me, who was already in foster care. He was kind of a troublemaker, and I thought that I could work things out, and we had a really solid relationship, and I thought that I could help him. And anyway, he moved in with me, so I had my foster care license, and I have a lot of education working with kids, and I worked in a couple different schools. I had done some special training, and I was really becoming a really good trainer of people to work with kids, especially difficult kids. My nephew was definitely a challenge. But anyway, so the reason I'm telling you that is, as a foster parent, the foster care organization where we got our foster care license called us every single weekend. Will you take these kids? Will you take these siblings? Will you take this young boy? Will you take whatever? So I was out on vacation, or no, this was before, and they called and they said, we have a young man who's 15 years old. We just need respite, meaning he just needs someplace to stay for a few days up to a very short period of time. Sometimes they're transitioning, sometimes they're looking for permanent placement, whatever the reason. And I said, yeah, we can take him we can't do the 2 weeks, we can do 10 days because we're going on vacation. We're going to be going out west. And they're like, okay, we'll take the 10 days. So he comes in, and my nephew and my previous partner and I were standing in the kitchen, and the caseworker walks in, and in walks this skinny little boy, scrawny, kind of raggedy, clothes that didn't fit, looked really dirty, giant duffel bags in his hand. He walks into my kitchen and breezes by me and says, where do I sleep? No hi, hello, who are you? My name is nothing. And breezes by me. I used to call him my little hurricane. And down the hall he went. And I said, you can put your stuff down at the end of the hall, the bedroom on the left. And then I looked to the caseworker and I said, what's his name again? And she goes, his name's Robert. He goes by Bob. And I'm like, okay. And this caseworker and our friendly neighborhood therapist, who always sees the kids in foster care, says, you need to read his file. And I said, okay, I'm probably not going to read his file because I'd like to just kind of assess him in my home as it is. I said, as long as he's not a murderer or he's going to skin my cats or set my house on fire, I'm fine not to know whatever this stuff is that you need me to read. Because they want me to get a clear picture, be forewarned about this person. And I chose not to do that. Why did I choose not to do that? Because I wanted to develop my own opinion of this young man before somebody clouded it with his colored past. And then to end that story is I ended up adopting him 2 years later. So my point to these two stories is when we stand back and we look at our lives, when we approach a person or a person comes into our life for this whatever amount of time, we immediately see them as a certain way, however they're showing up. Now, my sign language teacher, I basically saw as a threat. And so I treated her accordingly. This young boy who moved into my house and came in like a hurricane, because he's in my house, I took on the role of being a parental figure, even if it was literally for only those 10 days. My relationship with Bob then was just like two peas in a pod. I just used all of the skills that I knew and how to build a relationship with somebody. And I just built a relationship solid. And then through time and our engagement together, in our conversations, we learned about each other, and I learned about his past. Then when I read his file, years and years, like 2-3 years later, I read his file. It was the adult's perspective. So it was really interesting to get his side of the story from his mouth now as this 15, 16, 17-year-old, than the story that's written in these reports. And what ended up happening is that we have a really solid relationship. So what I want to give you this weekend, I'm recording this for Friday morning, what I want to give you this weekend is to stand back and to practice over the course of the weekend the people that you come into contact with. I want you to stand back and just look and go, let me just see if I can assess this and figure out if there's a way that I can bond or blend with this person. I can pause in my thought for a moment. I can pause in my speech for a moment and let the person talk. Let them show me who they are. So that is a very powerful thing to do and to experience, as these two very powerful stories had shown me. I didn't give this one instructor hardly any time, and then slowly, of course, I liked the class, so I loved going, and then I just learned how she taught, and I really, really liked her, and she became my favorite teacher. And then, taking back the learning from that experience and stepping back and learning about Bob before I read this horrific file of his past, and building a natural relationship with him, which then led me to choose to adopt him. So I find it to all be very interesting yet subtle if you just wait a minute, if you just wait and allow the person, whoever that person is, whether it's somebody you already know, whether it's your kids, your spouse, a cashier, an attendant somewhere, somebody, that just allow them to reveal themselves to you. And then see if you get a different opinion than what the opinion was that you originally had.